Let's start the homework questions from section 3.4. And for the first problem, I need to graph the nonlinear equations using a table of values. And then I need to determine if the relation is also a function by using the vertical line test. Okay, so my very first question is y equals to x squared plus 1. So I'm going to rewrite the equation over here. And then my table of values are the values here in green. And basically all you're doing is you're taking these values and you're plugging them back into the original function and finding the y value. For example, if your x value is 2, you want to plug 2 back into here. So this would be 2 squared plus 1. And 2 squared is 4, and 4 plus 1 is going to be 5. So when x equals to 2, y is going to be 5. And all you're doing is you're kind of repeating this process, and you're just kind of plugging in these values for x, and you have to be pretty good at your computational skills to make sure this table is correct. So this is 1 squared plus 1, and 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. So when x equals to 1, y is going to be 2. All right, so then keep on plugging in numbers for this problem here. X equals to 0. This is pretty easy. 0 squared plus 1, which is going to be 0 plus 1, so that's going to be a 1 there. Then after that, I'll do one more value, and I think most students will probably get the idea of how to do this problem here. If I have -1, I recommend that you put the -1 in brackets. So -1 squared is going to be -1 times -1 plus 1, which is going to be 1 plus 1, which is going to be 2. And if you repeat the process, when x equals to -2, y will be 5. And there you go. So that's step number 1. You want to complete that table, and after that you want to plot the points. So when x is equal to 0, y is 1, which is going to be this point right there. And then when x is 1, y is 2. So that's going to be this point right there. And then finally we have when x is 2, y is going to be 5. So that's going to be somewhere up here. This is this point right here. When x is 2, y is 5. And then do your best to kind of complete the rest of the points here. So there's another point there, and there's another point right there. And then just connect the dots, and that's your graph right there. All right, so that's how you do the first question. And definitely this is going to be a function. It's a function because it does pass the vertical line test. And all you have to do for that part is draw a vertical line. And as you can see, every time you draw a red line, we only have one y value, right? So that's why it's a function by passing the vertical line test. Okay, let's move on to the second question here, number 1c. So I have x equals to 2 to the power of y. So now our table of values, we're given the y values, and if we're given the y values, we need to go ahead and find the x values. Okay, so let's start with this value right here, y is equal to 3. If I plug that in there, I get x equals to 2 to the power of 3, and 2 to the power of 3 is going to be 8. So when y is 3, x is going to be 8. All right, so a similar procedure to what we did in the previous problem. We just take these values here, the y values this time, plug them in. So this will be 2 to the power of 2, and 2 to the power of 2 is going to be 4. So when y is 2, x is going to be 4. All right, and let's go ahead and do 1 here. So if I've taken 1, that's going to be 2 to the power of 1, and 2 to the power of 1 is going to be 2. Let's go ahead and do 0 right away as well. So that's going to be 2 to the power of 0, and 2 to the power of 0 is going to be 1. So there you go. So that's how you do the numbers there when y is positive. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the negative numbers now. And our first negative number that we need to consider is -1. So let's go plug that in over here. So that's going to be 2 to the power of -1. And 2 to the power of -1 is going to be 1/2. So when y equals to -1, x is going to be 1/2. And then let's try y equals to 2 now, which is going to be 2 to the power of -2, which is going to be 1 over 2 squared, and 1 over 2 squared is going to be 1 over 4. So that's going to be 1 over 4, and when y is -3, that's going to be 1 over 8. Okay, so there you go. That's how you would complete the table there. And once again, your arithmetic has to be quite good to complete the table values for these kind of problems. And after that, let's go ahead and plot the points here. So when x equals to 1, y is going to be 0. So that's going to be this point right here. When x equals to 2, y is going to be 1. So that's going to be this point right there. When x equals to 4, my y height is going to be 2. So that's going to be about here. And this point right here, 8, 3, that's kind of off the grid. So if I had to go a little bit further out, it might be around here. That's the point 8, 3, roughly. And then we have all these other points when x is a half, y is -1. So that's kind of like over here. And then when x is a quarter, y is going to be -2, which is about there. And when x is 1/8, which is a really small number, I have a height of -3, which might be over there roughly. All right, so if I plot all the points there, my graph could look like something like this. And indeed, this is a function. It's absolutely a function because it does pass the vertical line test. If I draw a vertical line right through this graph, it only touches one y value, right? So that's a function for that one for sure. Okay, let's move on to letter D now. For letter D, I have y equals to 1 over x, and you will see this function quite a bit in pre-calc 11. When x equals to 0, let's go ahead and plug that in. So that's going to be 1 over 0, and 1 over 0 is undefined. 1 over 0, there's no answer for that. So basically, let's put this undefined symbol right there. And what does that look like on the graph? It just looks like a vertical dashed line on the graph. And in pre-calc 11, we call that a vertical asymptote. So at x equals to 0, we have that vertical dashed line, and we call that a vertical asymptote because the graph does not exist when x equals to 0. Okay, and then after that, let's go ahead and plot the next few points. I have x equals to 1. Okay, so that's going to be 1 over 1, and 1 over 1 is going to be just 1. So when x equals to 1, y is 1. And then I have 2. So when x equals to 2, y is going to be 1/2. And when x equals to 4, y is going to be 1 over 4, which is a quarter. So that's going to be 1 over 4. Okay, and if you complete the process there, you'd get -1 here, -1/2 there, and -1/4 over there. All right, so once again, you're just kind of computing numbers there. And let's go ahead and plot the points now. I guess the first easy point is going to be the point 1, 1, which is going to be right there. That's 1, 1. And another easy point is -1, -1, which is right there. So there's -1, -1. And then after that, let's go ahead and plot the next point here, which is 2, 1/2. So 2, 1/2 is going to be about here, about there, and 4/4. So we'll go left 4, and maybe around there, right? So if I plot the points, the graph actually looks like this. So that's the first part of the graph. And then if I plot the points, -2 1/2, that's going to be about here. And -4/4 is going to be about there, right? So about there roughly. And then if I plot those points, I get this. All right, so the graph kind of is a weird branchy thing, which kind of looks like that. And indeed, this is still a function because if I draw a vertical line right through the graph, it touches the y value. Every single x value has one y value, so this is indeed a function. Okay, so I think questions like C and D are some of the weird ones, and we get a few more easier graphs to work with, but I think letters C and D are a little bit weird. So please ask me any more questions if you have questions about graphing those functions there. I will say the next one here, this one's a little bit easier to figure out. Let's go ahead and, for this problem, we're not given any x or y values, so I've just created 4 random x values over here that work really nicely for this problem. So let's plug in a 0 in for x. So that's, if I do that, that's going to be 0 squared minus 2. 0 squared is 0, minus 2 is going to be -2. So when x equals to 0, my y height is going to be -2. All right, and then if I use positive 1 here, that's going to be 1 squared minus 2, and 1 times 1 is 1, and then if I subtract 2, I get -1. So when x equals to 1, y is -1. And then if I use 2 here, I would get 2 to the power 2 minus 2. So 2 to the power 2 is going to be 4, and 4 minus 2 is going to be positive 2. Right? And then after that, you can kind of complete the rest. When x is going to be 3, 3 squared is going to be 9, and 9 minus 2 is going to be 7. And then from there, you can just pick a few more values here, like -1, -2, and -3. And if I do that, I get positive 7, positive 2, and -1. All right, so go ahead and do your best to kind of complete that table there. And after that, you would want to plot the points. So 0, -2 is down here. 1, -1 is right there. And then -1, -1 is over there. 2, 2 is about here. And -2, -2 is going to be over here. And that's enough. I mean, the graph is going to look like that. And once again, this is going to be a function because it does pass the vertical line test. So this is indeed a function. Okay, that's it for question 1E. Let's move on to question 1G. And I think 1G is a very similar problem here. I randomly picked a few x values here in yellow, and we just need to find what the corresponding y values will be. Let's start with x equals to 2. All right, so now I have this brackets here, so that's going to be 2 minus 2 all squared, and 2 minus 2 is going to be 0 to the power 2, and 0 to the power 2 is just going to be 0. So when x equals to 2, y is going to be 0. All right, now let's try 1 next. All right, so that's going to be 1 minus 2 all squared, and 1 minus 2 is going to be negative 1, and negative 1 squared is going to be positive 1. So when x is equal to 1, y is going to be equal to 1. Now let's try x is equal to 0. So that's going to be 0 minus 2 all squared. 0 minus 2 is going to be negative 2 squared, and negative 2 squared is going to be positive 4. So that's going to be positive 4. All right, and then you would do the rest, and if you do the rest, you get 9 over here, you get 1 over here, you would get a 4 here, and you'd also get a 9 over there. And after that, you would just kind of plot the points. So when x is equal to 2, I'll start with this one right here. When x is equal to 2, y is going to be 0, so that's going to be this point right here. And then I have 1 comma 1, which is right, oops. I have 1 comma 1, which is going to be right there. I have 0 comma 4, which is going to be to about there. And negative 1 comma 9, which is somewhere up there. And then if I use this point right here, 3 comma 1, that's going to be about there. 4 comma 4 is going to be about there. And after that, that's enough points for me to kind of graph this, and that's what my function will look like. And once again, this is a function because it does pass the vertical line test. Okay, a few more to go, and then we're done this homework video guide here.